the news tonight, His Majesty the King returns home, concluding a working visit to New York, where he addressed the UN General Assembly's 68th session on world security. The UN Security Council unanimously votes to adopt a resolution that demands the eradication of Syria's chemical weapons, and a UN chemical team in Syria begins investigating alleged chemical attacks in the country. And the US and Iranian presidents speak by telephone in the highest level contact between the two countries in 3 decades. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Here are the details. His Majesty the King returned home after concluding a working visit to New York, where he addressed the UN General Assembly's 68th session. His Majesty also met with a number of world leaders and heads of delegations, as well as US officials, intellectuals and politicians during his stay in New York. King Abdullah arrived in New York on the heels of a state visit to China, where he held talks in Beijing with President Xi Jinping and other Chinese officials. While in China, His Majesty visited the first Sino-Jordanian trade exhibition aimed at further promoting trade exchange and cooperation between the two nations. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour urged for infusing a new spirit in the government administration and shunning the approach of hesitation and fear. Mansour acknowledged that the kingdom's administrative organs are not at their best performance and are being labelled as being reluctant and apprehensive about taking decisions for fear of being accused of corruption. Speaking at the launch ceremony of the first Government Leaders Forum in Amman, Mansour urged authorities to end prolonged waiting time in delivering citizen services, saying the people are being tormented by public departments and this should end. The Prime Minister urged those at the higher echelons of the government administration to be more decisive when the decision is in favour of the people. The government, represented by the Ministry of Public Sector Development, deemed the conference necessary to underscore the traits of leaders running the country and to highlight the outlines drawn out by His Majesty the King in his discussion papers that should define the future of the kingdom. A day after the United Nations approved a resolution to destroy Syria's chemical arsenal, a UN chemical team in Syria began investigating alleged chemical attacks. The monitors arrived in Damascus on Wednesday and will be investigating 7 cases of alleged chemical or biological weapons use, including 3 incidents around the capital. The team is expected to finalize their work on Monday before issuing a report on Syria's chemical weapons by late October. UN experts have said it will be risky and expensive to destroy the chemicals in Syria. The UN Security Council unanimously voted to adopt a resolution late yesterday that demands the eradication of Syria's chemical weapons. The vote by the 15-member Security Council was based on a deal between Russia and the United States reached in Geneva earlier this month. The resolution does not allow for automatic punitive action in the form of military strikes or sanctions if Syria does not comply.
Today's resolution calls for convening an international conference on Syria to implement the Geneva Communique as soon as possible. Excellencies, it is time to make this happen as soon as possible. The United Nations has completed all the preparatory work. President Assad has stated that he is prepared to send a delegation to Geneva, and the Syrian National Coalition has expressed its willingness to engage. Our conversations over the last week have focused on launching Geneva II.
Meanwhile, Syria's ambassador to the United Nations, Bashar Jafari, said Turkey, Saudi Arabia, France, Qatar and the United States must abide by the resolution and be held accountable if they continued assisting the rebels. He also said the Syrian government is fully committed to going to Geneva for the planned peace talks, which the rebels have also suggested they would attend.
I can say that the adoption of this resolution covers most of the Syrian government's concerns. The Syrian government, which has been trying to address the same concerns since the beginning of the crisis. The Syrian government is fully committed to going to Geneva in order to implement the political process led by the Syrians for a better future for all the Syrians.
On the streets of Damascus, there was a general sense of relief at the UN vote. One man said he did not believe the government had used chemical weapons, and another said ridding Syria of all chemical weapons was a positive move. U.S. President Barack Obama and Iranian President Hassan Rouhani spoke by telephone yesterday, making the highest level contact between the two countries in 3 decades. The communication was also a sign that the two sides are serious about reaching a pact on Tehran's nuclear program. The 15-minute telephone call, the first between the heads of the two nations since 1979, centered on nuclear issues and came while Rouhani was heading to the airport after his first visit to the UN General Assembly.
In the first major contact between the two nations since the Iranian Revolution, U.S. President Barack Obama and Iranian President Hassan Rouhani speak on the phone, a possible sign both are serious about reaching a pact on Iran's nuclear program. The White House tweeted out this photo of Obama on the phone with Rouhani after the call. The Twitter feed believed to be Rouhani's released this photo of the Iranian president on a plane following his conversation with Obama.
Just now, I spoke on the phone with President Rouhani of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The two of us discussed our ongoing efforts to reach an agreement over Iran's nuclear program. I reiterated to President Rouhani what I said in New York. While there will surely be important obstacles to moving forward, and success is by no means guaranteed, I believe we can reach a comprehensive solution.
Earlier this week, Obama hoped to meet with Rouhani while both leaders were in New York for the UN General Assembly, but Iran decided a meeting would be too complicated. As president, Rouhani is the head of the government but has limited powers. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is the supreme leader of Iran and has final say on domestic and foreign policy, but Rouhani says he has been given full authority to negotiate on the issue. The International Atomic Energy Agency has long struggled to strike a deal with Tehran to enable it to resume a stalled inquiry into suspected nuclear weapons research in Iran.
And upon his return to Tehran, hundreds of Iranians cheered Rouhani after his historic phone call with Obama, while a smaller number of hardliners shouted, "Death to America." An Iranian official said the U.S. had reached out after positive talks between U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif a day earlier. While there has been little reaction so far from Iran's political leaders, one senior parliamentarian tentatively welcomed Rouhani's conversation with Obama as a sign of the country's position of authority. On his Twitter account, Rouhani said in his conversation with Obama, he told him, "Have a nice day." And Obama responded with "Thank you" and Khoda Hafez, which means goodbye in Farsi.
The conversation that we had on the phone was mostly over nuclear issues, and I said on that phone call that not only it is the absolute nuclear right of the Iranian people, and not only it is the developing Iranian issue, but also it is an ever bigger issue, which is the national pride of the Iranian people. He approved the right of the Iranian people to nuclear energy.
In Washington, meanwhile, the U.S. President sternly warned Congress against a government shutdown on October 1st as lawmakers struggle to pass an emergency spending bill that Republicans want to use to defund Obama's health care reform law. While there was still a chance of averting a shutdown, time was running out as House of Representatives Republicans fought with each other over the next steps. In his weekly radio address, Obama urged the U.S. Congress to pass the budget law and raise the nation's debt ceiling.
Congress has two responsibilities right now: pass a budget on time and pay our bills on time. If Congress doesn't pass a budget by Monday, the end of the fiscal year, the government shuts down, along with many vital services the American people depend on. On Friday, the Senate passed a bill to keep the government open. But Republicans in the House have been more concerned with appeasing an extreme faction of their party than working to pass a budget that creates new jobs or strengthens the middle class.
Obama warned that a government shutdown would throw a wrench into the economy. A shutdown would likely result in up to 800,000 federal employees being laid off.
Past government shutdowns have disrupted the economy. This shutdown would too. At a moment when our economy has steadily gained traction and our deficits have been falling faster than at any time in 60 years, a shutdown would be a purely self-inflicted wound. And that's why many Republican senators and Republican governors have urged Republicans in the House of Representatives to knock it off, pass a budget, and move on.
Tunisia's Islamist-led government Ennahda agreed to resign after talks with secular rivals to form a caretaker administration and prepare for elections to safeguard the democratic transition in the country. The talks, which could begin next week, aim to end weeks of deadlock between the governing coalition and secular opposition that has endangered prospects for stable democracy. Tunisia's powerful labor union, mediating between the sides, proposed 3 weeks of negotiations with a date for parliamentary and presidential elections. An aftershock hit a Pakistani province where hundreds were killed in a major earthquake earlier this week. Today's 6.8 magnitude aftershock destroyed most of the town of Nokjo in the western province of Baluchistan and left at least 15 people dead. The shock was also felt in the commercial capital Karachi, along with various parts of the Sindh and Baluchistan province. Aid deliveries have been complicated by the fact the remote region is home to separatist insurgents who fear the army may take advantage of the crisis to move more forces into the area. American wingsuiter Jeb Corliss successfully flew through a narrow valley in the Langshan Mountain in Kuzhou, East China's Zhejiang province. The 298-meter deep valley is only 20 meters wide at its widest point and only 3.5 meters wide at its narrowest point. Corliss jumped out of a helicopter and flew towards the valley at the speed of 160 kilometers per hour. Luckily, he made it this time with no injuries. He's once hit a waterfall in South Africa that left him with a broken back. He's broken his leg after hitting a building in Kuala Lumpur, and he has broken both ankles when he crashed into a bridge during a wingsuit jump in South Africa.
Not for as long.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Okay, have a rest.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. This is the greatest thing I've ever done up to.
And the winner of Miss World 2013 is Miss Philippines. Actress turned beauty queen Megan Young was crowned Miss World 2013, outpacing 126 other contestants from around the world. Held in Bali, Indonesia, the crown was handed to Young by 2012 Miss World title holder Wenzia Yu of China. Miss France was the runner-up and Miss Ghana took third place in the beauty contest. And from beauty to fashion and the Paris Fashion Week, where Vivienne Westwood's ready-to-wear Spring-Summer 2014 collection was a flashback to medieval times. Models sported painted faces and bold updo hairstyles, entering the stage via an escalator. The British designer called her show "Everything is Connected," saying she took her inspiration from the morality of medieval folk. Westwood's show featured a mix and match of asymmetrical dresses, jackets, and quirky prints. Fabrics included material made from recycled plastic bottles and sackcloth, in addition to traditional silk, cotton, and knitwear. We begin with tennis and the final of the Pan-Pacific Open in Tokyo. Petra Kvitova of the Czech Republic overcame a second-set meltdown to dispatch Angelique Kerber to claim her 11th WTA Tour title. Kvitova sealed victory on her fourth match point when Kerber could only find the net after the Czech left-hander had forced her back with a customary deep forehand. She completed the match with a 6-2, love 6, 6-3 victory. Jan Kopecky has gained enough points to make him the 2013 European Rally Champion after leading by nearly a minute and a half in the Croatia Rally. The Czech Republic driver led at the end of the rally's first day and so earned enough bonus points to give him the title, barring any further penalties. Kopecky will achieve his sixth win of the season if he finishes the rally in first position. He has been runner-up 4 times in the Intercontinental Rally Series, which preceded the European. In second place was Andreas Egner of Austria, followed by Hermann Gassner Jr. of Germany in third. And finally, for a quick look at the weather, it continues to be cool tonight in most regions and pleasant in the Jordan Valley and the Aqaba with southwesterly moderate winds. Tomorrow it'll be mild in most areas with westerly moderate winds. The Gulf of Aqaba can expect relatively hot conditions with northerly moderate to fresh winds and calm seas. Here now is a look at temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here's a reminder of the day's top stories. His Majesty the King returns home, concluding a working visit to New York, where he addressed the UN General Assembly's 68th session on world security. The UN Security Council unanimously votes to adopt a resolution that demands the eradication of Syria's chemical weapons, and the UN chemical team in Syria begins investigating alleged chemical attacks in the country. And the US and Iranian presidents speak by telephone in the highest level contact between the two countries in 3 decades. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Alia Tuqan. Thank you for joining us and have a good night.